that. Like she said, my name is Macy. I'm currently at the University of Arkansas as a PhD candidate in the Industrial Engineering Department. But before I came to Arkansas in undergrad, I was actually a part of a group on my campus called the Stanford University Innovation Fellows. And this fellowship was started out at Stanford's design school. The professors there realized that the things they were teaching their design students were actually really valuable, and that students across all disciplines needed to learn these problem-solving skills and these creative design thinking skills. And so they started this fellowship where students, undergrad students, grad students, postdoc students all across the nation could join and learn about design thinking, lean startup, and all of these really neat creative problem-solving methodologies. So I was in that when I was an undergrad, and then when I graduated, I took on more of a mentorship role. And so now I do workshops and things like this, sharing what I learned with other people so that we can all just become better problem solvers. So the first thing I'm actually going to have us all do is a little activity, a little icebreaker. I think that sometimes these virtual workshops are a little weird, and it's really hard to feel I don't know, connected to speaker or connected to each other. And so I want to do a little icebreaker to kind of help with that right off the bat. Here in a minute, I'm going to have you all do something for me. I'm not going to say what it is yet, and you're going to have about 30 seconds to do it. And we're all just going to do it kind of quickly, and it might not make sense right away, but we'll go over that afterwards. So I'm going to put 30 seconds on my stopwatch, and I want everyone, wherever you are, to make me a flower. That's open to interpretation, whatever you want your flower to look like, whatever you have around you. You have 30 seconds starting now.
What do you exactly mean by make a flower? I mean, can we use a pen and paper?
Anything you want.
Okay.
You can use your jacket that you have sitting next to you, a book, a pen, a paper, open to interpretation. Make a flower.
Okay.
You have about 10 seconds left. And time. Okay, I want everyone to stop what they're doing and hold up the flower they've made so we can all see each other's flowers. We've got some drawings. Drawing's a nice little origami, lots of origami. I love to see it. This is great, so fun. Okay, so the reason why I do this right off the bat is one, so we can kind of start interacting with each other and it feels a little less weird. And then also, did anyone feel rushed by the flower making process? Like they didn't have enough time to make the flower they wanted to make? Yeah, that's kind of what today's workshop is going to feel like. We're going to go kind of fast, and you might not feel like you have the time to do the work that you really want to do, but that's okay. I bet if I gave you guys more time to make another flower, it would be even better because you've learned from this first experience. And that's kind of what today's going to be about. This will be your first experience with some of these lessons, and then you can take them with you wherever you go and use them again and again and again and get better and better and better. So don't feel frustrated if it doesn't click right away today, or if you don't feel like you have the time in this workshop to really do the work that you want to do. The other reason I do this workshop is sometimes it's a little awkward and scary and uncomfortable to share with each other. But now we've all shared our flowers with each other. We've all shared something we've made, and we've been vulnerable with each other. So when I ask for feedback, you don't have to feel afraid about sharing your thoughts or your ideas because you've already shared something you've made with each other. There are going to be no right or wrong answers today. We're all just going to kind of learn from each other and grow in this. And so remember that when I ask for feedback, like you've already shared with each other. So there's no hesitancy to share later down the line. So we're talking about design thinking today. If you've never heard about design thinking in your life, it's a process. I don't know about you guys, when you think of creativity or who a creative person is, a lot of times we think it's like a very ambiguous characteristic. Either you have it or you don't. Either you're creative or you're not. There are creative people and there are analytical people. But design thinking kind of throws that all out the window and says, no, everyone can be creative if we use this process. The 5-step process that anyone can use to come up with creative solutions to their problems. And it's a cyclical process. So it goes in a cycle. The very first step is that top step there. We empathize with the people having the problem. We put ourselves in their shoes. And then we define what the problem is that they're having. That's what we're going to talk about today. And then we come up with a lot of ideas about solutions to that problem. We narrow it down to a few or one of the best, and we prototype it. We then take it out into the world and we test it with those users again. We re-empathize with them and learn what they're thinking. We redefine our problem. We'll ideate again, we'll prototype again, we'll test again, and we just do it over and over and over again till we come up with the best solution possible. And this method helps us learn how to come up with really creative solutions to problems if you don't know where to start. You start with this process and you'll come up with really creative solutions. If you've been in the creative problem solving world at all, you might have also heard of Lean Startup. It's a very similar process. Again, it's a cycle. We start at the top with ideas that we come up with. And then after that, we build solutions, we build products. We then measure how well those products do out in the world. We take data on them, we learn from that data, we come up with new ideas, we build again, we measure again, we learn again, we build again. The difference between these two is design thinking kind of helps us come up with really great solutions. Lean Startup helps us come up with really great products or like tangible solutions. So they're pretty similar processes, but a little different. We're going to be focusing more on design thinking today. So our mantra today is to learn how to make actionable problem statements We're going to learn how to form actionable problem statements based on real problems real people are having. I like to set a mantra. That way we know at the end of today, have we been successful? We can look back at our mantra and say, well, do we know how to do this? Yes, then we've been successful. If we don't feel like we know how to do this, we're going to go back and work on it a little bit more. So the two things I want to highlight is actionable problem statements. We do not want problem statements that are going to be vague or ambiguous or hard to clarify or use a lot of jargon. We want things that are going to lead us straight to an action. And then we want to base these problem statements on real problems real people are having, which sounds obvious. You would think, why would I create a problem statement on not a real problem? But it happens all of the time. For example, the creator of Segway thought that walking was a problem for people and that people didn't want to walk. So he created this Segway so that people would never have to walk again. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't see people out on the sidewalk just rolling around on their Segways. So he created this really expensive solution to solve a problem that no one was really having. So we want to make sure that we don't do that. We want to make sure that the solutions we create are to solve real and tangible problems. So we're going to do this in 3 ways. We're going to first learn who our problem havers are, the people having the problem. Then we're going to be open to discovery and pivoting. We're going to recognize that sometimes our problem statement wasn't quite right, and we need to pivot and change it. And then we're going to seek diversity and change our frame of reference. We're going to recognize that we are not the end-all, be-all, all-knowing beings that we like to think we are sometimes. And so we need to step outside of ourselves and recognize that other people might see this problem a little differently than we do. So I'm going to start with a little story time. When I was an undergrad, part of the University Innovation Fellowship, our job on campus was to figure out what the problems were that students or faculty or staff were having, and then find creative solutions to them. And so one year, it was my junior year, I'd been part of the fellowship for about a year, and our group was really struggling to figure out what problems were happening on our campus. Now, a little bit of background, my undergrad school was very small. It was about 1,000 students in total, and it was only undergrad, no graduate students. And so we thought, okay, we need to figure out what problems students are having on campus. What if we just sit down and talk with all of them? There's only 1,000. If that's what we do this year, we just sit down and we talk with each of the 1,000 students and find out what problems everyone's having, and then we'll just write them down and put them in a database. And we realized pretty quickly that was a bad idea. We don't need that much information. That would take way too much time, and then we would never actually solve any problems because we were too busy talking with people. And so then we thought, okay, what if we just pick a subset of the students? And so we thought, okay, how are we going to pick this subset of students? And we ended up deciding that we were going to pick 20 students on the criteria that they were cool, but overcommitted. So they were cool people that we wanted to talk to, that we thought were interesting, but they were also overcommitted on campus. So these were the people that were leaders in their Greek life. They were part of honor societies. They were on sports teams. They were really involved on campus is what we were looking for. People that didn't just sit in their room all day, every day and do nothing. We wanted people that were out in the campus talking to people, friends with a lot of students that would have their finger on the pulse of what was happening on campus. So we made this list of 20 cool but committed students. And we thought, okay, how are we going to talk to them all? Should we just go corner them each one by one and talk to them? And we thought, no, that's not what we want to do. We'd like to bring them all together somehow. And so I don't know if anyone has ever tried to host an event on a college campus, but let me tell you, it is hard to get college students to show up to something. College students are some of the most non-committal group of people I've ever met. We do not want to commit to going to anything because what if a last minute homework assignment comes up or a party, or I just don't feel like going and want to lay in my bed and watch Netflix. So we then had to tackle this challenge of how do we get these students to actually come and all sit down and talk with us. And so we came up with a solution where we decided that we were going to invite them all to an event off campus. We had chosen a bar just off campus that people could walk to if they didn't have a car, and they were going to give us the back room. And so we thought, how are we going to get people there? And we decided that we would print off these business cards, and the business cards were blank except for a time and a place, nothing else. And so we walked up to these 20 students around campus in the library or in the cafeteria, and we would hand them this card and say something like, I hope you come, or I want to see you there, and then just walk away. And so the night came, we had the event on a Friday night at like 7 or 8 o'clock, and we were sitting there setting up. We had gotten a bunch of appetizers and drinks, and we realized about 20 minutes before the event was supposed to start that we had no clue if anyone was actually going to show up. Our method of inviting people had no way of RSVPing. So we just had to sit there and cross our fingers and hope that this mysterious invitation would intrigue everyone enough to like get over their non-committal attitudes and show up for the night. And so wildly enough, 19 of the 20 people that we invited showed up that night. In hindsight, we realized that maybe that 20th guy was a little creeped out by our way of inviting him. But overall, we considered it a success. We invited each of these students to come in and just tell us about the problems that they were having across campus. And this was a diverse group of students. They were all different majors, all different Greek life, some athletes, some in residence life, all different clubs on campus. And so as they started telling us about their problems, we were asking them to write them down on sticky notes, which you can see there in the picture. That's actually the bar that we were at. And what happened over and over again is as one student started talking about their problem, another student across the bar would say, yeah, I feel that way too. And they started to empower each other to speak more openly about the problems that they were having. They felt safe in this space away from campus to share openly that they weren't going to be walked in on by a faculty or staff member and be critiqued for their opinions. And by the end of the night, we had hundreds of these sticky notes. So my job was actually to take them all and put them into this Excel sheet where we were able to categorize them by the topics and the problems and the people having the problems. And then that year, as we went on to solve some of the problems that we were solving, we had this, whenever administration would ask us, why are you focusing on this problem? We don't really think it's a problem. We could pull up the spreadsheet and say, no, it is a huge problem. Look at the surveys we've done. Look how many students really have an issue with this, or look how many problems there are within this certain section of campus life. And so this is a story to kind of explain to you guys, it's really important to know who the people are having the problems. One, so when you're trying to solve that problem, you have that validity of, hey, this is a real person having this problem. I know because I've talked to them. Here's what they've told me. And then also as a motivating factor. Sometimes when we get down and dirty solving these problems and defining these problems, it can get frustrating moving forward, and it can be hard to find the motivation to keep moving forward. So if you can remember that person who told you about the problem initially, it can be a huge motivating factor. So we are now going to split up. I think you guys are going to be split up into predetermined groups, and you guys are going to discuss among your groups who the people are having the problem that you guys are working on. That is kind of the first step to creating your problem statement, is knowing who's having the problem. So I think Madison is going to go ahead and split you guys up. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to discuss amongst yourselves, or for those of you that are in single teams, I think you're going to discuss with other single team members about who your problem havers are, and then we'll come back together.
All right, thank you, Macy. So just like she said, teams, I'm going to put you into some breakout rooms here in just a second. If you are working with a group, you will be with the rest of your group. It looks like we do have one independent student, and I will be putting you in with another group so you have someone to discuss with. So here we go. Okay, all right, you should be sent in now. All right, they're all in. I'm gonna go ahead and hit pause on that recording for now.
Okay, it looks like everyone is back. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys for some feedback. If you guys want to share with me what you discussed, actually first go ahead and tell me what the problem is you're working on in a sentence or two, and then who you decided that your problem havers are. Anybody want to share? You can just take off your mic and go ahead and share, because I don't think I'll be able to see people to call on them.
Okay, I can share my group's thing.
Sounds good.
So our problem is the leakage of gasoline whenever you fill up your car. Like whenever you take it out and it'll start leaking from the nozzle. So that is our problem. And the people that it affects are basically the people who work there, like gas station attendants or people who work in the actual gas stations, the environment around the gas station, as well as the animals and wildlife around the gas stations. So whenever the leakage does happen, it gets into the atmosphere and into the soil, and it could really harm people and cause lung cancer.
Yeah, that's great. That definitely affects a lot of people. Anyone that owns and operates a car. So that's a huge set of problem havers. Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to share what their problem is and who their problem havers are? Anybody?
Is there anyone from Jaslene's team that wants to share?
Yeah, we can go ahead
Okay.
and share that. So, like, we are focusing on creating food products that are healthy and contain minimal amount of sugar in them. So basically so for us, the people that we are focusing on are anyone who has some underlying condition, like is diabetic or is obese, and everyone who wants to be healthy, and of course, I mean everyone who eats breakfast basically and wants to have a healthy
Focus on breakfast foods?
Yes.
Okay. So anyone that eats breakfast, that is, again, a really large set of problem havers, but that's great.
Yeah.
Does anybody else want to share their problem havers? Okay. So that, like I said, is the first step into understanding what your problem is you have to know who's having that problem. That way, as you may get lost later down the road, you can always go back to who those people are and have conversations with them and ask them, what is it, the problem you're having? You know, you can go interview the people at the gas station and say, how does this affect your life? You can go to the breakfast aisle at Walmart and say, hey, don't you wish there was a healthier option here? Tell me more about it. What would you like to eat? So again, that's a very valuable foundation to have as we're solving problems moving forward. Let's see. So story time again. When I was in the fellowship, one thing that we would do a lot of the time is we would go to design competitions at other colleges. So colleges would host like a weekend competition where they would give you some sort of prompt And then you'd have to come up with, kind of do the design thinking cycle, come up with the problem statement, come up with a bunch of ideas, prototype an idea, take it out and test it with users, do that again and again. And then at the end of the weekend, we would pitch it to see who came up with the best idea for the prompt. And so my senior year, it was February of my senior year, we were asked to go to a design competition at Wichita State. And so 5 of us ended up deciding to go. And 4 of the 5 of us were seniors in our last semester senior year. And I don't know if we have any seniors in the group tonight, but by the time you get to last semester senior year, you're just kind of done. You're over it. You don't take anything seriously, even though you know you really should. And so that's kind of the mentality we were going into. But we thought, okay, we'll go see our friends at Wichita State. We'll join their design competition. We'll help them out. We'll have fun. We'll see our friends. And so we get there and we realize they give us our prompt for the weekend. It's Friday night. And they said, okay, you get to work Friday night. The pitch competition is on Sunday at like noon. So you get to just work until Sunday at noon. And so it's Friday night. And our prompt is that we need to design something sustainable that will be eco-friendly and environmentally friendly. And that's all we have. And so we're like, okay, we start brainstorming and trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do that's going to be eco-friendly? What problem are we going to solve? And we land on this problem of food waste. We all know food waste is a huge problem, especially in America. How can we solve this problem of food waste? What can we do with all that food that people are throwing away? And so we thought, okay, what if we take all that food and we can maybe somehow find a way to like break it down into the fibers, and then we can use those fibers to maybe make some sort of clothing. And then we can call this grand idea banana suits when we go to pitch it on Sunday. And we were all like, this is a great idea. One, do we know if it's really feasible? No, not really, but it sounds really fun, and it's going to be really fun to pitch it when it comes Sunday. Again, remember, 4 of the 5 of us are seniors. We don't really care about coming up with a great idea. We care more about having fun this weekend. And so we were sitting there thinking this will be the best presentation we've ever done. It does actually follow the rules. We follow our prompt. We come up with a creative idea that is a solution for food waste. And it's a really fun idea. So we decide to call it a night, Friday night. We decide to head back to our Airbnb. And the other reason that we wanted to come up with an idea pretty quickly and move on was because our Airbnb had a margarita machine. So if anyone is ever looking for an Airbnb in the Wichita area, I have a great one that I can suggest to you. So we get back to our Airbnb and we just start hanging out, the 5 of us, and we're drinking our margaritas and we are playing games and we're kind of talking about the weekend and talking about our banana suits and how like great our presentation is going to be. And as we do that, one of the guys, Jacob, turns on the TV and starts flipping through channels. And he comes on to some sort of like National Geographic or Discovery Channel documentary about Hurricane Harvey. And Hurricane Harvey had just happened that year, actually. And so he's kind of watching it. Everyone's kind of talking. No one's really paying attention. And he kind of stops us all and he says, hey guys, look at all these pictures and videos of Hurricane Harvey. And we're like, yeah, like, you know, it's really awful. That really sucks. Let's turn it off and get back to the margaritas and the games. Like, what are you doing? And he was, no, look at all those pictures. Look at how in almost all of the pictures, power lines are down, but the poles and the phone poles and the light poles are all still standing in almost all these pictures and videos. And we're like, oh yeah, like that's kind of wild. Like they must have a really great engineering team. Like those poles must really be stuck in the ground, really sturdy. And he started talking and he was like, what if we switched our idea and we instead made some sort of floodwater monitoring system that we could stick onto these poles, and then people could know what the floodwaters are like in certain areas after they've evacuated. And we all kind of look at him and we're like, I don't know, you know, poles fall down all the time. This might not be a great idea. And he's like, no, guys, I think this could be a good idea. Let's just look into it really quick and just see if it would even be feasible. And so we get out a few computers and we start looking at pictures of a lot of the other hurricanes that had happened recently, Katrina and a few of the others. And we realize in all these pictures and videos, there's a ton of these poles that are still standing. And we start to realize that his idea might actually be a really good one. And so the next day on Saturday, we end up going back to the competition and deciding that morning that we have to ditch our banana suit idea, as much as we loved it and as much fun as it was. and pursue this other idea of creating a floodwater monitoring system that could be attached to a telephone pole. And so the idea we came up with, we ended up calling DROP. We built a prototype, you can see there in the picture. It was a water level sensor attached to a ruler that was actually solar powered. And then that sensor could send the information to a central hub that could then make some sort of like topographical map of what the water levels look like. We ended up, unfortunately, not winning the competition, probably because we had to do all of our work pretty much on Saturday because we had wasted our Friday night on the banana suits. But in the end, the junior in the group, Jacob, ended up taking on this project and using it as his senior honors project and actually implementing some of these systems into some small towns in Florida. And so this story is to kind of tell you guys that you might really love an idea or a problem statement that you have. You might think it's really great and it's the way to go for whatever reason. Maybe it's really fun. Maybe you think this is just the right path. But sometimes you have to take yourself out of it and realize that another great idea might come along. And sometimes you have to drop what you thought was really good for something else that's even better. We could have very easily just shut Jacob down that night, said, no, we're doing the banana suits, forget about your idea. And it would have been really fun and we would have had a really great weekend. But if we had done that, we would have never gotten to work on this really influential project that turned into an honors project that was actually implemented into some small towns. And so I tell you this to tell you, like, be open to pivoting, be open to discovery, be open to changing your mind. Even when it's a really great idea that you really love, recognize that sometimes you need to let things go that you really love. So we're going to do another little breakout group. Again, I think we'll go back into the same groups. And part of being open to discovery is understanding this concrete to emotional range that all problems exist on. So for us, the concrete part of our problem was there are floods all over America. And then the emotional kind of why was when a flood happens in your area and you have to evacuate your home, there's a lot of uncertainty and fear there. So how can we take that concrete problem and the emotional side of it and solve both of them with our solution? If you just solve the concrete problem, there's an emotional side you might never be tapping into. If you just solve the emotional side of the problem, maybe you forget all about the concrete, tangible problem that's causing those emotions. So understanding both the concrete and the emotional side of your problem will help you come out with a better solution later down the line. So I think we're going to send you all again to your groups for about 5 minutes and when you come back, I'm going to ask you to tell me what the concrete and the emotional side is of your problem.
Thank you, Macy. All right, teams, it's sending you back now.
Okay, looks like everyone is back. Am I right, Madison?
Yes, we're good to go.
Okay, great. So I'd love to hear about this range that you defined for your own problems, the breakfast cereal and the gas station pumps. So if you guys want to hop on the mic and tell me what the concrete side of your problem is and then what the emotional side of your problem is. And anyone can talk.
So I can go first. I mean, we are not sure about that. So like we tried our best to find that. So I think for us, the concrete side would be health related issues and quality of life, and then mental health, like improving mental health basically. And then the emotional side would be boosting self-confidence and then improving mood swings and just like feeling better in general. I mean, I'm not sure if that's correct, but that's what we think it is.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think the emotional side could also be you feel better when you eat healthier. You feel better about yourself. Like you said, that self-confidence, you feel happier when you eat healthy. It's been shown again and again that when you're eating healthy, the endorphins released in your brain increase, and then you just feel like a better person. So that's great. Does the gas pump team want to share what they defined?
I'll go ahead and start. So the concrete part that we discussed was preventing a certain amount of spillage per pump at every gas station. And then the emotional part is people getting sick, getting diseases like cancer, death, and having that lesser quality of life when they are around the gasoline spillage.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think your concrete is a pretty obvious one. Like the problem is that there is spillage at all. Like that's the problem. And then I think you guys, yeah, that's a good job for the emotional. I think that that's kind of the difficult side to feel out. We all know what the concrete side of the problem is, but giving into the emotions is sometimes the difficult side. And sometimes that's actually when you have to go back to who your problem havers are and talk to them about it and try and figure out how do they feel about this. Because I know for me, when I was thinking about it while you guys were gone, I was thinking, well, that would make me feel just kind of bad and wasteful. Like, why do we, it's 2020, why don't we have gas station pumps that don't leak? That's just, we're wasting gas. And that just makes me feel bad because we're not being sustainable. And I want to try and be, you know, the most useful, sustainable person possible. So that's a great job. So thank you so much for sharing. We're going to move right along into another story time. This is my friend Ryan. Ryan used to work for Microsoft on their inclusion team. So what that means is Microsoft had an inclusion team. So anytime they released any new product, the inclusion team would make sure that this product was as inclusive as possible, that as many people could use it, and that it didn't make people's life worse, it made more people's life better. So Ryan was working at Microsoft when OneNote was released. And if you don't know, OneNote is a office software that integrates typing and writing and pictures. It works best for touchscreens or tablets. And so they released OneNote, and Microsoft thought this is going to be great for a lot of people, but it's especially going to be great for students. Nowadays, a lot more schools are offering tablets, notebooks to their students to be more technology proficient, to learn how to take notes on a computer before they get to high school and college. And so Ryan and his team thought this is going to be great for students. So a couple months after pushing out OneNote, Ryan and his team went into some of the local schools and started talking to teachers and administration and students to see how it was going, how they were liking this new product. And they found out that actually quite a few students weren't using it, that they were still typing their notes. And they were pretty confused by this. They thought, why would a student type their note if we've given them this way to write their notes and include typing and include pictures and doodles? Why would they keep typing their notes? And so they talked to the administration. The administration didn't really know what was going on. They talked to some teachers. Teachers didn't really have great answers. And it wasn't until they actually sat down and talked with a lot of the students that the students started telling them, well, when the teacher's lecturing in class and I'm typing my notes, if I don't know how to spell a certain word or phrase, I'll just type it and move on and not worry about it and come back and spell check it later. But when I'm using OneNote and I'm writing out my notes, if I don't know how to spell something, I get stuck and I stop and then I go to look it up or I go to try and type it out to see if the spell check works. And by then I'm already lost in the lecture. The teacher's moved on. I'm frustrated. I feel like I can't keep up and I either get lost or I just shut down. And Ryan and his team were like, oh my gosh, why didn't we think about this? So they went back to Microsoft and they told the people there, the software developers, about this problem. And with the next software update, OneNote had spell check for handwriting, helping these students to be able to actually utilize the service and to be able to take their notes with OneNote and not feel like they were getting left behind. And so I tell you guys a story because Ryan and his team, the people that work at Microsoft, were probably not the people that were struggling in school too much. They probably weren't the people that struggled to spell the words right when the teacher was lecturing. So they never thought about the need for a spell check in this handwriting tool. But because they were able to look outside of themselves and go and talk to the people having the problem and be able to kind of put themselves in their shoes and empathize with them, then they were able to see, wow, we didn't really solve the problem that we thought we were going to solve. We thought we were going to make it easier for students to take notes in class, and we made it harder for a lot of students to take notes in class. So then they were able to go back to the drawing board, kind of like that cycle that we've talked about, and realize, okay, we need to redefine the problem and we need to come up with a new solution. And so I tell you this also to encourage you guys as you're going through creating these problem statements and exploring these problems, be able to take a step back and think, okay, this is how I'm seeing the problem right now, but maybe there's a big blind spot I'm not seeing. Maybe I need to go talk to a different kind of person having the problem than myself and see if they see the problem the same way I do. And that will really help you avoid these blind spots, like the one that Microsoft had with OneNote. So we are going to see if we've completed our mantra here. And I think we have. I think we can now make actionable problem statements based on real problems that real people are having. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to use this template. So the first part is our problem havers. We figured out who our problem havers are with that first little breakout group. We figured out who the people are having our problems. And then those problem havers need a way to overcome the problem. And that's our tangible, on our tangible to emotional scale. That's the tangible, concrete problem. And then the so that some impact happens. And that impact is that emotional side of that concrete to emotional range that we talked about. So I think we have all these pieces. I'll give you guys a few examples before we send you off to work on your own problem statements. For us, when we made drops, this was our problem statement. Coastal communities were our problem havers, and they needed a way to measure water levels after natural disasters. That's the concrete side of that problem. And the emotional side is so that they can have a better understanding of flood damage. Yeah. And then Ryan and his team probably had a problem statement very much like this. Students who struggle with note taking need a way to take notes quickly and efficiently so that they don't get left behind in class. The problem havers are students who struggle with note taking. The tangible side is they need to just take notes quickly and efficiently. And that more emotional side is so they don't get left behind. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to send you guys off into your groups again to come up with these actionable problem statements for your own problems. I think you have all the pieces, but if you have any questions, you are welcome to ask. Otherwise, I think Madison's going to send you off.
Thank you, Macy. Does anyone have any questions before I send you off into those breakout rooms? All right, looks like we're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and put you in those now.
Okay, I would love to hear your guys' problem statements.
We weren't able to complete that.
Okay, what did you have? Did you get your problem havers?
I think yes, but
okay.
Ishita might be able to explain it better from my team.
Okay, I can. Yeah, so we were like a little confused because our problem havers like would have, so like the problem havers are health conscious people or people who would in general want to live a healthier lifestyle. They need a way to consume less sugar or healthier sugar substitutes without compromising the taste so that they can be happier, feel happier, and live healthier.
Yeah,
but then that's
great.
like a lot of help in a single sentence.
Yeah, I think that you guys got it. You nailed it right on the head. I think you could, like you said, you can maybe take a few words out of there to make it a little more concise. But other than that,
right.
Yeah, health conscious people that eat breakfast need a way to find healthier breakfast options so that they feel better and are happier. And again, like I said, we're going through this pretty quickly. So you might not feel like you have the time to make it perfect, but now you have these tools. You can go back in your teams and really hash it out and make it exactly what you need to. And also you're part of the design thinking process, which is, again, it's a cycle. So you might go out and start testing solutions here in a few weeks and realize, oh, we have that problem statement all wrong. We have to go back and figure out who our problem havers are again, or we have to figure out what that emotional impact is again. So don't feel like you have to have all the answers tonight. We just want to get kind of a roadmap, something down, so we can kind of start working on it. So, but that was great. Does the other team want to share what they came up with?
We came up with the people living around the gas stations need a way to reduce the leakage from the nozzle so they do not feel those harmful effects.
Yeah, I also think that's great. I think you can maybe expand who your problem havers are a little bit to like anyone that drives a car, because that leakage like affects all of us. But every time we fill up at the gas station, it probably has the most impact there at the gas station and the surrounding areas. But it might affect more people than you realize. But again, that's one of the things that maybe later down the line you realize you need to make that bigger, or you need to narrow that in more. But that's a great job. Yeah, so I think that is all I have for you guys tonight. I will stick around for a little bit in case you have any questions or you want to ask about any part of the presentation. But otherwise, I've had a really great time with you guys tonight. Thank you for sharing your ideas and kind of your thought process as you've gone through this. My email is there on the screen, so if you ever want to reach out and ask any questions as you're kind of going through this process, I would love to help. But other than that, that is all I have for you all. So thank you for letting me come talk to you guys tonight.
Thank you so much, Macy. This has been great, a great place to start with these actionable problem statements. And I think as we come to a close and start with more questions you might have for us, I just want the action item takeaway for you guys to be thinking about is to solidify that actionable problem statement into something that's a little more concise, like she talked about, and then reach out to at least one new contact for your customer discovery. So use this to help you decide who your next interview for that customer discovery piece is going to be. So with that, I would love to open the floor to any questions you have.
Macy or Stacy, do you guys have any tips? And maybe you guys are already doing lots of customer discovery interviews, but do you have any tips for the group in thinking about who good customer discovery interviews might be?
I think for the gas station team, if you haven't already talked to gas station employees, that's probably where I would start. My first job was actually at a gas station. So they're really great people. I know because I used to be one of them. But they probably have a lot more insight than you realize. There's a lot more that go on at gas stations than meets the eye.
Yeah, that's good.
And then for the breakfast team, if I were you guys, I would honestly just stand in the aisles of like the cereal aisle at Walmart and talk to everyone that walks by in a discreet manner as to not disturb the customers. But that's what I would do if I was your team.
Yeah.
For that team, go ahead, I'm sorry, Stacy.
Oh, just the power of observation, right, is huge. So like standing and seeing what people do, how they talk to other people, what they pick up, what they don't pick up, that's huge. So I'm with Macy on that. And even the gas station one, I don't know if it'd be helpful, but it might provide just a little more information on even how people, if they get in their car, if they don't, there might be some intel that you gather, like she's talking about, that directs you even somewhere you didn't expect to go. So yeah. Deb, go on.
No, I was just curious for the group with the breakfast that you guys are focusing on breakfast, because I know what you're creating is something that is essentially creating a healthier sweetener option, correct?
Right. That's
yeah.
Right.
So how did you guys decide that breakfast was the place you wanted to start?
I think that's one of the places, like food items we figured that's a staple in everyone's diet. That is the most prominent food item you consume every day. Pretty much everyone consumes it. And we do not have like options which are like healthier in that terms. Like we have protein bars and stuff and snacks, but not breakfast items, not breads, which are healthy, which have healthy sugar substitutes, not jams and like peanut butters, which have healthy sugar substitutes. They either compromise on taste or health. There's no sweet spot available in that realm.
Yeah. So is it primarily cereal, the product that you're thinking?
I think cereals and breads is one of the first and foremost thing we are thinking, and then we can eventually expand on that. We don't want to take on too much in the starting, I guess.
No, it's a great place to narrow it down.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we wrap up?
I think I have one.
Mm-hmm.
So for the customer discovery, I think I've asked this question before as well from Madison. But Macy, can you give a little bit insights, and whoever wants to chip in, I think you guys are like well experienced in this stuff. So what sort of questions, like it needs to be an open conversation, we understand, but we were thinking about like getting to know about their pre-existing conditions, what are their likes and dislikes, what are they passionate about, of course, in the realm of like being health conscious. So all those types of things, but should we also kind of disclose that we are thinking about this, like, and get their opinion on that, or just focus on the problem?
When I do customer discovery, I don't like to lead anybody anywhere because I don't want to lead them towards my solution, and then get that self-validation. So I usually don't even ask them about the solution I'm thinking of until I have a prototype. And then I'm having them try out the prototype and tell me what they think, their honest opinions. So I would think of it as like having a conversation with a friend. And for you, your team, well, both of your teams, probably all of your friends are in the problem havers side. All of your friends probably eat breakfast and pump their own gas. So you could start by having conversations with your friends and saying like, what do you like about breakfast foods? You know, what do you wish you could change about breakfast foods? And maybe you get the answers you want, maybe you don't, and that's okay. And there's something to learn from that.
That's awesome.
That's super good advice. That I was thinking the same thing. That could frame like those questions that you ask people might help you even think through the first type of product that you create, right? What do you eat for breakfast? What do you like about that particular breakfast option? Is it, I mean, because it could frame how maybe you create something that's kind of an on-the-go option that's healthier. You know what I mean? You talk to moms, talk to people that have kids that eat cereal. That's a real challenge for people that have young kids to have it. Most mornings at a house with a woman with lots of children, it's challenging at best to get everybody out the door and in the car and on the way to school on time. So when you think about like an on-the-go breakfast option that's healthy or has less sugar, that's a market that there's not a lot of options out there. Mm-hmm. I just know because my sister has a kid who likes Pop-Tarts and frozen waffles and all the things. But I'm sure she would choose something healthier if it was convenient and easy. You know what I mean?
Right. That's awesome. That's really good advice.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Macy, for that advice. So I just have this question, like, does this mean we are not going to ask them anything about our specific product, right? So like, because we were thinking of like, there are some other options available in the market that has no sugar in them or that has some healthier substitutes. I mean, they say that they are healthy, but again, like it's kind of that companies are putting in substitutes that have sugar in them, but they are just claiming that those are healthy. So we were just thinking of like including those particular things in our survey, like if they have an option that has no sugar in it, or if they have some alternative option that has less sugar in it and doesn't compromise the taste as well. So because that's kind of something that we were thinking to ask them. So I mean, again, like you are saying that we shouldn't be leading them somewhere, I mean, related to our product. So does that mean we shouldn't include such kind of questions in the survey?
Not necessarily. I'm saying don't show them your solution, because I found that when you go and show these customers or these strangers your solution, they're probably going to tell you it's good because they don't want to hurt your feelings. And then that doesn't give you any valuable feedback. But if you take them these healthier options that are out on the market already and say, what do you think of this? And then just write what their honest feedback is, maybe that will validate what you guys already think, that these healthy options don't taste really good and people don't really want to eat them. They don't like the way they taste. Or you'll learn that people actually don't mind the loss of flavor if it's healthy. And then that will help you guys further understand what the problem is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, the difference in that kind of work is thinking of discovery versus proving. I'm not trying to prove anything at this point. I don't have to prove that that's a good idea yet, right? Even if I think it is, I just want to see what's out there. So that helps me because I move into proof, like I want proof, right? So if I stay away from that, I can usually ask some better questions.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Stacey. Thank you, Macy.
Yeah, of course.
I have a question for you, Macy.
Yeah.
So how many customer discovery questions is it ideal to ask someone who is very busy and tight on time?
That depends on kind of their attitude. If you guys are standing out at a gas station, you have as long as it probably takes them to pump their gas. And then once they're done, you probably need to let them go. So that kind of comes down to prioritizing your questions when you ask them. Ask that most important question first. So if that's the only question you get in before they run off, you at least have that. But it's a lot of just kind of recognizing that body language. You don't want to, if people are upset or in a hurry or trying to get away, they might not give you honest feedback. They might just say whatever they think you want to hear to get away. So, and also maybe if you seems like they don't want to answer your questions, just don't ask them any at all. Just go find someone else that actually wants to answer your questions.
Okay, and what about when you're doing those virtually? How many should you do?
I think it's the same kind of thing. Usually when you're doing something virtually, there's an expected like time that you're going to take of someone. So you ask them like, hey, can we hop on for a quick 10-minute phone call or Zoom call? And then only taking that 10 minutes. So if they give you long-winded answers, that means you ask less questions. But I think it's really important to be respectful of people's time if you want the best answers possible.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more question. So are surveys acceptable for customer discovery interviews?
Madison might have an opinion on that. I don't love surveys because I think it's really hard to make good surveys that aren't leading and that actually get you valuable information. I think when you're talking with people, you not only get what they say, but you get their body language and their kind of like what they're doing with their face and their eyes and the tone of their voice. If you just have them click a bubble, all you get is what bubble they clicked. So I would say quality over quantity. Get better quality information by actually talking to people. You get better quantity or more quantity of information by doing surveys. There's value in some of them if you want to see what like a mass group of people thinks about like a yes or no question. But I would just be careful because surveys are really hard to do well.
Okay.
I have
Thank
to
you.
echo Macy there. I think the more person-to-person experience that you can gain out of that interview, I think that will probably give you the most what you can look for in this small amount of time that we have. So I would focus on that if you can, but I think that's the way to start.
Thank you, Madison.
All right, any other questions? Okay, everyone. Well, Macy, again, thank you so much for being here. Teams, I hope that you gathered some value in this process, especially as it comes to, solidifying that problem statement and thinking about those next steps for your customer discovery. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. We are happy to take time to continue this conversation if you need extra support. So we are here for you. Thank you so much for being here, everybody.